So, okay, the match is very famous. We're not actually going to talk about the match in the lecture because, I mean, it's just covered all over the place, and there's so many different places you guys can learn about it. I actually want to focus on just Spassky, the player, show you guys some games leading up to when he became world champion, maybe one or two games from the world championship match that he won. Just talk about his style a little bit and what we can learn from him. I actually think Spassky, his personality, apparently he was a pretty nice guy. He's like one of the more upstanding chess players in history. Like he was always like super polite and sportsmanlike, and yeah, I've like never read a bad thing about him. I've like never read anything like he tried to like steal or cheat someone at all. Like just morally like very cool person. And kind of laid back. I don't get the sense that he was hyper competitive. Anyway, Spassky on the board though, very strong player, like very level-headed. Like didn't blunder a lot, but found a lot of tactics and especially a lot of tricks that we'll kind of see in the class today. And in the match against Petrosian, I feel like this was one of the maybe deciding factors. It seemed like he just found a lot of these like quick tactics and was just a little bit sharper overall. Okay, let's get to the first position here. This is a game in the QGA, and Spassky here is playing white. I'll just show you guys how the opening progressed here real quick. Knight c6, knight c3, c takes d4, rook d1, pinning the pawn. This is kind of a typical idea. If white takes on d4, then black might be able to get away with just taking twice. So white starts with rook to d1, bishop b7, e takes d4, taking on the isolated queen pawn, and that's something that Spassky did quite a bit. He took on the IQP a lot in his career, and he was quite strong with it. Knight to b4. Does anyone know any other openings that Spassky was known for playing? I think there's one other line that I'm thinking of that he was quite good at. Actually, a few openings that he kind of like specialized in as white. A little bit of trivia. Ruy Lopez, he did play the Ruy Lopez, although I would say that wasn't like a huge specialty. Nimzo, maybe. I feel like everyone played the Nimzo. I'm sure he did as well. I'm thinking of openings that like aren't that popular. Like Ruy Lopez and Nimzo Indian, like super popular openings. Pretty much like almost every top player has played them at some point. Spassky played a couple of openings that are like not so popular. So one being the King's Gambit, which is kind of interesting. In fact, he even beat Fischer in the King's Gambit at least once, maybe twice. And Spassky was also a big fan of the closed Sicilian. In fact, that was an opening he won a lot of nice games in. He was just very good at like building the slow attack on the king side. He also loved bishop g5, knight or for white. Yeah, that's true. That was a big opening in the Fischer-Spassky match. Yeah. Okay, so here black just played knight to b4, trying to take control over the critical blockading square d5. And now it's white to play. So let me ask you guys here. This will be our first moment to pause. Please send me your suggestions via direct message, private message. What do you think white should do here? And no rush. I'm going to let you guys think for a couple minutes before we talk about it. Okay, guys, let me call on Aryan here. And Aryan, what do you want?
So his king is stuck in the center and he's undeveloped. So you should start with d5 to try to open it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then knight takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, and bishop g5 to keep the initiative. If bishop e7, then bishop takes e7.
Okay, so bishop e7, you want take?
Yeah, bishop.
Yeah, let's say queen takes.
Now rook c1. Yeah, rook c1. You can't castle.
Okay, rook a c1. Fair enough. If we castle, there's just twice taking on d5.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just pause here for a sec because black maybe has some options.
Just to make sure
Thanks, Aryan. So let's think here. Maybe there's rook d8. Yeah, maybe rook d8 here, but clearly white has some compensation. So Aryan's idea is very close to what was played in the game. Indeed, Spassky pushes d5 here before black has a chance to blockade this one. Other good moves here, like bishop g5, totally reasonable move. But this would allow black to kind of establish the knight on d5. And now if we hit black with something like a4, like a few of you guys suggested this one, then white definitely fights for some initiative here, because black still owes us a couple moves, right, to castle. So structurally we're worse, but in terms of time, white is definitely doing well. And then b4, we can think about taking on d5 or knight e4, rook c1, playing for knight c5, and this kind of thing. And white, yeah, has some compensation for the IQP. A4 immediately, yeah, I think definitely reasonable move here. I think white has a nice, it's kind of annoying for black, like what to do. If takes, bishop takes, if not, b5 is hanging. And if takes, bishop c6. And we're taking, and then taking on a6, right? I think that was the idea. Yeah, though unclear exactly how much white is quite getting there. What about knight e5? Let's see, knight e5, I think another like reasonable move, like for this kind of position in general, like the knight wants to come here. You look for like knight takes f7 sacrifices. I think again this would probably force knight bd5, and then the position is very balanced. Like I think white can definitely fight for the initiative, but is not like immediately, let's say, breaking through. Oh, knight takes b5 was the idea. Oh, I didn't see this one. Oh, my bad. Oh, this is kind of a problem for black. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Maybe black needs to play the other knight then to d5. Although again, we're kind of need to watch out for this one. So that was the idea behind 95. I didn't realize. So there's no bishop takes f3. Gotcha. Oh, that's a nice idea. Yeah, even this poses some like really uncomfortable questions for black. Because knight takes f7, of course, is also a big threat. Yeah, what do you guys think black should do here? Maybe bishop d5, yeah. So if white takes on b5, there's going to be knight d7 at the end. If takes, we take this way. Okay, at least black is not collapsing immediately. But still white has good chances for the initiative here, like a4, bishop g5. Yeah, I like white as well. Yeah. Okay, so d5. Now Aryan said knight takes d5, white should take, and then go bishop g5. And this, I mean, this feels very forcing, right? But after bishop e7, like it doesn't, we're trading and then we have compensation, but okay, it's not like, not that incredible, right? So what does Spassky do? Well, d5, knight takes d5, and then he just goes bishop g5. So just keeping the tension. And now knight on d5 is pinned, knight on f6 is pinned, knight takes d5 is kind of a huge threat. So what to play here for black? Yeah, bishop e7, exactly, most natural move. And now white to play. How should we proceed? Okay. Yeah, lots of right answers here. Let me call on Daniel. He was first.
I thought bishop e7 was probably just bad because after bishop f6, you have to take with the pawn because of the same pin, and then.
So yeah, takes, and black doesn't have enough here. Right, so gf.
And I thought bishop d5 if there's not something even better, which I don't think there is. Just bishop d5, probably pawn takes. And then I thought either knight d4 or knight h4. It just everything looks horrible. Like I think, yeah, white's almost winning probably.
Yeah, very good. I mean, this is pretty close to what happened in the game. Basically, same idea. White decided to take on d5 with the knight. But essentially, we're just playing into the structure and essentially forcing black to go into this kind of position where the king side is wrecked. The bishop on e7 is just like a target. And then after knight to d4, this knight is headed to f5. And black just has way too many weaknesses here to survive. So, I mean, the king side is just huge problem, and white's heavy pieces are just going to come in and dominate. So there's a few different ways to do this. I think bishop takes d5 also good enough. Knight takes d5 maybe slightly more forcing because it gets black to trade off this bishop, and now white is just left with this very dominant knight on d5 against bishop on e7. Does this remind anyone of any famous games by some older world champions? Like, because it turns out, what did white do? He sacrificed the pawn to push the d5 and eventually just created this square on d4 for his knight. Yeah, any famous games? This would have been before the FIDE titles were a thing. So this would have been some players in the classic. Yeah, Daniel's got it. Steinitz versus von Bartleby. That's the famous d5 push, takes knight d4, then the knight comes to e6, and that's the game with the famous rook takes e7 combination, where the rook is like dancing on the 7th rank. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I would look up that game. absolute beauty. But that game starts with like this positional sacrifice d5, where white is able to create this d4 square, and this is kind of what happens here. So it's not like the most difficult line to calculate, but it shows like a very healthy like sense of initiative, right? Just d5 takes, bishop g5, and now this move bishop e7 is losing, but black unfortunately doesn't really have a better option here, as knight on d5 is hanging. Pin on all over the place is pretty bad. Knight takes c3, I guess, like might be another try, but oh sorry, we're just taking with check, so no big deal. So yeah, black is just kind of stuck. So let's see the rest of the game. Takes knight d4. Black tried king f8, knight f5, h5, rook takes d5. This is kind of like pretty straightforward attacking play, and that's it. Game was over. 2 checkmate threats and the fork. It's too much to deal with. Okay, let's jump to our next game here. And this is not gonna take too long. I just really always like this one. Okay, white to play. Black just played bishop takes d3, and white has a big decision to make here. So, what to do? Okay, let me call on Zoe.
So here I want to play queen h6, and black has to play queen somewhere to guard it, for example queen e7. Then bishop takes g7, rook takes g7, rook takes g7 check. Queen takes g7, queen takes e6 check.
Yeah.
Queen f7, and queen takes c8 check.
And what do you make of this final position?
Well, black's up a bit of material, but then black's king is also really weak. So, for example, white can try like queen d8 here, followed by rook e7.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, black's not even up anything. We got rook and two
Lots of
pawns,
pawns.
and king is just too open. So this is just totally winning for white. Good job. Okay, now there are some lines here. This one, of course, is game over. Like queen d8 is good. Just too many threats against the king, and then the knight is kind of too far. But let's go back to this position. So queen h6, number one, I mean, just like very imaginative move. Obviously, he probably had this one in mind in the previous position. If we back up a move, like bishop was on c4, white's bishop was on d3, and white's last move was bishop f4 to e5. So he probably kind of had this one in mind, because otherwise he might have like avoided the trade of bishops. I don't think he would have allowed this one if all he wanted to do was just recapture, because then black is, trading off an important pair of minor pieces. So he probably had this one in mind, and of course now it's like a temporary piece sack, but the idea is that now this is just a huge threat, and any defense of g7 just leads to kind of the same combination that we just saw. Okay, but black does have one move that kind of keeps things interesting, and Huebner finds it. Rook c7. So what should white play now? Okay, let me call on Liam.
Hi. So in this position, I played queen takes e6 because I want to go rook takes g7 check. And then also, if let's say black goes king h8, then I can take on c7, and I'm just winning material because there's no way to stop queen e8 without losing the rook.
Right. Yeah, very good. Queen takes e6, and now rook takes g7 is just kind of a devastating threat. And yeah, but this actually is the only way white wins here. Bishop takes c7 would just not be as clear. I think black takes with the queen here, and then the 2 pieces for the rook again, but black's king is not as unsafe as it was before. So queen e6, very, very strong. Had to probably have been seen in advance, and yeah, now black just doesn't have such a great defense here. Okay, yeah, the game keeps going. Bishop c4, rook takes g7, king f8. And now, okay, it's a matter of counting. Bishop takes c7. If takes, white takes here. And then rook is taking on e6 and 2 pawns up. So probably winning. Black took on c7. And now just simple rook takes f7, queen takes f7, queen d6 check. Keeping the queens on the board, of course, because black's king is much, much weaker. And yeah, game didn't last much longer. King g8, queen d8, and that was resigned as the rook is coming in one of these 2 squares. Okay, so nice trick there by Spassky. I always like this one. Let's move on to some more here. Okay, next game. Spassky versus O'Kelly, and critical moment comes here after black's last move. Oops. Knight to f5. Okay guys, white to play. I'm going to give you a couple minutes here to think about it, try to calculate some lines. How should we proceed? I think I should be back. Okay, let me call on Austin.
So I would play bishop takes f5, g takes f5 is forced, and then d5. I don't see anything other than bishop takes c3.
Sure.
Queen takes c3, c takes d5, and then queen f6. And if knight h7, I think that queen h6.
So queen f6, and okay, your idea is just to come in with the queen and play against black's king. Oh, Austin's muted again. That's fine. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. Yeah, a few of you guys had this idea. Yeah, for sure we have some play here. We can definitely analyze a bit further, like let's say taking on c4. What was the idea here, guys? Queen g5 check? Or did you want another move? Yeah, let's say queen g5, knight g6, we take, and then we want this one, and maybe queen h7. But it's not clear, like, okay, white will have threats, like queen h7, taking on e6, but black has a move, or a couple moves, right, to defend against this. So, not super clear, though some chances for sure. I'm not giving you guys a hard time because you just have like a few minutes to think about it. So it's all about just coming up with an idea, and then obviously during the game you would spend more time. Spassky did all this, and actually one thing is I feel like he really liked these kinds of pawn breaks. I feel like I see them a lot in his games. But after takes, c takes d5, he ends up going for a different move here. I don't think anyone mentioned the right move at this point, but let me give you guys another chance here. So there's knight g5, but it's not clear what that changes. Maybe black just pushes d4 and d3. Maybe even leaves the knight on f8, right, to guard h7 if we try to go for this plan. So what other moves does white have here? Well, queen c1 is kind of similar to queen f6. Black can maybe just take on c4 there and hope to survive. But yeah, Daniel's got it. Knight d4. Beast mode. Threatening the very simple and very strong knight takes f5. And taking advantage of the pin on the e-file. As it turns out, black doesn't really have a great answer for this one. It's kind of surprising. Black has a move here, but it's not clear how to defend, except one move, queen d7. And now white just goes c5. And so this is kind of the position Spassky is like looking for with his combination. Bishop f5, d5, and so on. Queen d7, c5. And if we take a look at this position, black's structure here is just like completely stuck. Like it's very, very difficult to go e5 without just your structure collapsing. It's very hard to like push f6. h5 is obviously going to be like a possible weakness to keep track of. And all white wants to do actually is like b4, a4, b5, c6. Slow, but like absolutely deadly. So pure positional sacrifice. But it shows like very, very, like this kind of like very calm strength, right? Like we sacrifice the pawn, but there's no rush to just immediately win it back. Forcing, like he sees the positional compensation. That's good enough. And of course, a lot of players could do this. Spassky was certainly not the only one. But this I always liked as an example because it's just very unexpected. Like all of a sudden we realize, oh yeah, black's knight has a hard time getting back into the game. And well, let's see what happens. So b4, a6, a4, rook c8, b5, takes, rook f8. So knight can't come to f6, right? Because again, we have some tactics. Knight takes f5, knight e4, queen g7, checkmate. So rook f8, c6, queen d8, rook c1, and now white just has a very strong c-pawn, and this is kind of enough to, well, one weakness. The other weakness, of course, on the king side. So queen e3, f3, nice move, can't take because of queen g5 check. Actually, queen g5, the rook g2 and stuff, but yeah, should be good for white. e5 is played, takes, and yeah, it's just all over. I mean, it's already collapsing at this point for black because queen g5 is coming, and yeah, again, if it takes, we just go rook g2, the easiest. Okay, so yeah, I really always like this game. I want to give you guys a few more examples here, just some cool tricks that that Spassky found. Let's go to this one, and then we'll finish with my favorite Spassky game, possibly one of my favorite games of all time, easily top 5. Okay, so this is one of the games from the World Championship match against Petrosian, and one of the openings, actually, another opening that Spassky became kind of known for, was the Tarrasch defense. Now here it's not exactly a Tarrasch, it's more of a classic QGD, but he also played it in like the regular move order, and he ended up getting this isolated queen pawn a lot, which he was able to handle quite well. So this is one of the games where he ends up winning with black. So let me flip the board. Rook c1, a6, h3, b5, and now white plays bishop d3. Okay, black to play. Give you guys another few minutes here to think about it. Okay, guys. Yeah, if you figured it out, sorry, I was just talking to Twitch for a second, so I muted. D4, very astute, and it's important to start with this one. You can play knight takes d3 there, but then after queen takes d3, we don't get this d4 option. The queen will be able to take. So d4, likely overlooked by Petrosian. Bishop takes d4, and now black takes, bishop c4, and wins the exchange. And this isn't the type of exchange sacrifice where Petrosian gets a ton of compensation, and then black was able to kind of slowly convert this one. Just not quite enough for white. Not easy to win this for black, but it wasn't quite enough. Okay, guys, let me share with you my favorite game of Spassky's of all time. I mean, it's a famous one, so I imagine a lot of you have seen it, but maybe not. We'll see. I feel like this is a very famous game in history as well. This game, Averbakh Spassky, and it just features, in my opinion, one of the most instructive moves of all time. Let's put it that way. Okay, so Averbakh is playing white. He is actually, I think he holds the distinction of being the world's current oldest grandmaster, if I'm not mistaken. So he's been around for a little while, and he plays the well-known Averbakh system, his bread and butter. c5, queen a5. And yeah, he gets a nice position here out of the opening. Black goes e5 here, and white goes g4. Actually, very instructive and very modern. Nowadays, there's lots of lines where white plays g4 early in the opening, and especially once black is committed to e5 and closing down the bishop, this makes all of these g4 lines a lot more dangerous for black, because now, well, one day white can castle queenside, or doesn't even have to, can keep the king in the center, and black isn't really able to open the center, especially now that black is committed to c5 and can't even play like c6, c takes d5. So here g4 is totally justified. Knight e8, h4, f5. What to do? If you're a King's Indian player and you don't play f5, you're just going to get squeezed to death, so you kind of have to play it and hope for the best. h5, white is continuing just to assault the king side, f4. And now g5, very good move, preparing possibly bishop g4 and just trading off black's most important minor piece. So queen d8, bishop g4, can take on g5, right, because of this one. So knight c7, covering the e6 square. Now takes, queen takes, and white goes knight f3. Okay, so let's take stock of what's happened so far. Black has been completely outplayed. He has no good squares for any pieces. Bishop on g7 is about to get shut down for the rest of the game. White actually has a very pleasant choice: either kill the bishop for good on the next move, or take on g6 and open the h-file. We traded off our best minor piece for white's worst one. And yeah, it seems like we're nowhere close playing b5. Like if we go b5, it's going to be takes, rook takes a8, knight takes a8, knight takes b5. We can't even get white to take on b5 with a pawn. They're going to take with the knight. So black is in big trouble. So what to do? Any ideas? What would you play here for black? Yeah, not a lot of good options. We're basically struggling. Rook f7, I think this is like a very thematic, like King's Indian type of move. This would probably be my choice. Like if I was playing this game, I feel like rook f7 is very logical. So at least your bishop can have some future on f8. Well, we're much worse. No counterplay, no space. It's pretty bad. True, white can take and go knight h4, and it doesn't look great. Yeah, I'm totally with you. But at least, I don't know, I would rather play down a pawn than just with this like totally buried bishop. In any case, yeah, we're in big trouble. Okay, let me call in Aryan, because he knows this game. So Aryan, what did black do here?
So to get counterplay, you need to open up some file or something. So you go knight c6.
Knight c6. Now, be honest,
Yeah.
would you make this move in a game if you had this position?
Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, me either. But it's such an amazing idea. Okay, thank you, Ari. I mean, especially like you're playing Yuri Averbakh. I mean, this guy has written a lot of books. Although I don't know, at the time of this game, I don't know how many books he had written yet. But anyway, Spassky goes knight c6, just giving the piece. And there's no hidden tactic here. There's zero tactic. He's just giving the piece. But he does force white to take it, because if white doesn't take, then at least he gets knight d4, he gets a square. And, I mean, of course, white is taking the piece. He's not going to back down. So what happens here? So takes bc, and black just has one pawn for the knight. But now he's opened up the other knight. So now at least he gets a square for the knight on c7, and this knight on d4 can at least be annoying for white. So what has he done? He's just made it hard for white. He's just made it slightly annoying. Is white still winning? 100%. You know, it's like +4 or probably more. Liam has a question. Sure, absolutely.
My question was, I know this is already winning, and knight c6 is to get counterplay, but what if instead of d takes c6, they just played h6 and ignored the knight, and then after bishop h8, just played a normal move and allowed the knight to go to d4, with the point being that the bishop is trapped for the rest of the game?
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, I think it's a perfectly reasonable idea. So the problem for white is that this knight on d4 will be pretty annoying, and it will be very hard to trade off, because if we trade, then we get e takes d4 most likely, and then at least if the bishop can come to e5, then the bishop will be defending good pawns, let's put it that way. And if white just plays around the knight on d4, it's still a little bit annoying, right? Because there's going to be like all these like squares that the knight is always targeting, and then black will be able to play b5. And once we get this structure like h6, bishop h8, now black, we're not really in danger of getting checkmated anymore, because there are no open lines. This is a position where white wins by kind of slowly squeezing and then like opening the queen side one day and winning the game, because we're down a bishop on that side of the board. But if black is allowed to get the knight to d4, I don't know, let's say white plays some move rook to g1 here, knight d4, well then black is getting counterplay themselves, and is actually, I think, maybe not even doing that badly. So if the position is going to be annoying for white to play one way or the other, definitely might as well take the piece and run with it. And yeah, like Liam said, I mean, black is still completely lost here. But the point is that if you do this enough, and if you at least make it difficult for your opponents, and you change the direction of the game, right? What was the direction of the game? The direction was that black is just getting squeezed to death. So if you find a way to change the character of the game, then you'll at least have some chances, and you won't lose every single game that you get bad positions in. You'll save some, you'll draw some, you'll even swindle some. You'll still lose quite a few. I mean, they're bad positions, but the point is, over time, those points will add up. So knight c6, I mean, just, I don't know, I would call it a very, very good psychological decision. And when you're completely lost, no matter what you do, you might as well try something unusual and see if you can get your opponent out of their comfort zone. Okay, so let's just see what happens. Knight h4, queen e8, takes, queen g4, rook b8. He's just chilling, you know, he's down a piece, but it's a closed position. So, you know, where is white's extra piece, right? It's like one of these guys, and what are they going to do to us on the king side? Not a whole lot. So, you know, black is not panicking. Okay, knight d1, knight e6, rook a3. If I remember correctly, I remember running this game through the engine long time ago, and white is like totally winning the whole time, but he ends up missing a win. It's like not that obvious. So yeah, we're just finishing up here, so let's play through the rest of the game. He takes on c4, take on g6, rook e6, takes here, queen f5, queen e6, and I was like, yeah, let's go for the endgame. I'm down a piece, but I have a lot of pawns. d5, still winning for white, still winning. But now black's pawns are just moving, and white's extra piece, not like it doesn't feel like it's doing a whole lot, right? So now black is pushing, rook g6, d4. That's impressive, bishop f8, but white's extra piece is still good. Rook b7. Bishop goes back to g7. White's two rooks still don't know what to do. And now finally c3 comes. All of a sudden things are no longer so clear. Like white just wasn't able to improve his position, you know, this whole time, just couldn't manage, and now black is like breaking through. So it takes rook a3 is the idea. Now a lot of stuff is hanging on the a file, some checks, maybe some c4 ideas, d3, and all of a sudden it's white who maybe has to be careful about making sure they don't lose. So check, king d3, rook b1. It's been a while since I saw this game. At a certain point, I think black is actually winning, but he doesn't manage either. Yeah, takes here. Now he's he won the rook, and has an extra exchange, and eventually I think white was able to save it. Yeah, now I mean black is just the one playing for the win. But white's king is super active, and I don't know what the time situation was like. I don't know if it was adjourned at some point or what, but of course white does not trade rooks. Keeps the rook active, goes after the pawns, and very nice move. e6 actually takes here, and yeah, black wasn't able to make progress. Kind of a nice fortress at the end, actually. I'm not sure this would be super obvious for everyone to figure out as a defender, but black has no way of improving the position because this pawn has to be kept for black to win, but there's just no way to do it. Like king d6, very important. If the rook, we give check, and here I think we have this one. Winning the pawn. So I shouldn't say no way to make progress, but basically white is just winning the pawn here. And they ended up making a draw. So yeah, drawn game. Maybe one of the most amazing draws in history, just because, like, you know, it just shows like chess is a game between two humans, and when you make things difficult for the opponent, a lot of times they end up not finding the right way. So in addition to capitalizing on your own opportunities, strong players, they often learn that you got to find a way to like unbalance the position, even if it means taking a huge risk, giving up material, even if it means that the evaluation goes even lower than it is already. It's very important to try and like change the character of the game. And as we can see, it was very hard for white. Like it wasn't easy to convert, and eventually black was rewarded for it. Oh, nice. Fischer Petrosian 4-queen game. That was another pretty epic draw. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up on this lecture on Spassky. Really great player. I just feel like, you know, he had a lot of fantastic wins. Again, very strong, like, attacking player. If you're someone who plays, like, the close Sicilian, his games, I think, are very much worth studying. And, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it.